Okay, seems like I'm having a hard time getting going with this one. Take three. So this is about bash scripting, specifically about using the return code from a command in a script. So we use lots of commands, also called utilities. It's just ones, they mean the same thing. They're synonyms. So a utility, grep is a utility, find is a utility, grep is a command, find is a command. They all set a return code because they can be used in scripts, and this is exactly what we're going to use them for. So the first thing that I do is I figure out what return code I need. Well, okay, let's describe the problem. So what I'm going to solve here is a very simple problem. I might do it differently, but there's always more than one way to do something when you're coding. But what I want to do is I want to display a message if there are any files in temp that contain the string Muppets. So when I'm looking for a string, that probably means grep. And what I will do usually is before I put something in a script, I'll try it at the command line to see what happens, just to save me time. So let's see. So what I want to do, let's have a look at temp. So in temp, I have that one file that has Muppets in it. But so I want to display a message if there are any files in there that have the word Muppets in it. So what I can do is, I'm not grepping by looking into a file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect, I'm going to use the pipe so that the standard out of ls becomes the standard in of grep. And what I want to look for is Muppet. And I might want to do this ignore case. So that's great. I'm able to find something. So now what I want to do is I want to say, okay, well, if that's the case, then that's something I want to say, okay, we have files named Muppets. So what's the return code? So the return code is in the special variable question mark. And to see the value of it, we use $question mark. So if it finds it, it gives me $question mark. So, okay, so what I'm looking for is 0 means that it found. But now I want to know, okay, what do I get if it's not found? Just to show the difference. So let's do something that's not there. Let's try that. I know that's not there. All I want to do with this is get the return code. So if it doesn't find something, it will give me a 1. So now that I have that information, I can use it in my script. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, I'm not grepping in a file. What I'm doing is I'm using the standard out. If I were looking in a file, it would be a different command. So I've already started this script here, and scripts must always have at the beginning the interpreter designator. So it's a bash script, and if I'm running the C shell by default or the Z shell, it will load bash for me, my name, the date I did it, and then at least one line describing what I'm doing. So, and whenever I change it, then I'll add another line at the bottom with the date and what I changed. So let's go down here, and what I want to do is, so I have to run my command. So I have to run my command in order for it to set the return code for me. Again, this command would be different with grep if I were looking inside a file, but what I'm doing is I'm using standard in. Ignore case. So now, and then immediately the next line, so I might want to hide this. So what I might want to do is, instead of, I don't really want to see the results of it on the screen. All I'm looking for is the return code. And I don't have to do command substitution here. I'm running it. When you do command substitution, you want to use the results of the command. But in this case, I want to use the return code. So I'm going to put in a little debug here, echo $0. That's just a debug statement. And then I'm going to use it. So if, two square braces, always use them, $question mark. Oh, I've incorporated an error here. So one of the issues with $question mark is that if I do another command, then I've immediately reset it. So I'm going to have to take that out. That was silly of me. Is equal to 0. And, oops, sorry. So what I want to do here is, since this is numeric and it's always going to be numeric, I want to use the numeric comparison operators. So I'm going to use equal. That's the numeric comparison operator. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong key. Then, oops. Else, so I guess I don't really need the 1. I know that 0 will give me Oops. So now I need to close it. Oops, and I need to spell something properly. So what I'm doing here is I have my if with the then, else, and the fee. So bash scripting is very specific. It has to have an opening and a closing like that. So I'm going to delete these blank lines. So now I'm going to save my file, write quit, and there we go. So now I have to test it. So I can test it using bash-x, and that'll show me every line as it's executed, or I can just run it. But let's try first with this. So what it does is it does the ls, it does the grep of the output, checks is 0 equal to 0, and says there are Muppets files in temp. So that looks good. Now I'm going to rename the Muppets file in temp so that I can get the, I have to test both branches. Every time I do something, I have to test both branches. Temp. I'm going to move it here, I guess. Now I know there are no Muppet shows, so let's check it. So here, so it didn't find any. That grep didn't find any. We just demonstrated that. 1 is not equal to 0, so no Muppet files in temp. So what the X does is it shows each line before it actually executes it. And then I can also run it like this. No Muppet files in temp, so let's move my file back. So the only reason I moved my file into temp, the only reason I moved my file was to test my script. So let's check it again. There are Muppet files in temp. So what I was doing here, let's have a look at my script. What I'm doing here is I use this line to set the return code, which is put into the special variable $?. And again, you have to be very careful. You have to either save it or use it immediately after you set it. So you might get that's the one thing where you might have a problem. So I have to use it immediately after or save it in another variable. And I check for the value that I discovered, and I use that value. So this is using a return code inside a script. Hope it was helpful.